If you're at a table playing poker and you don't know who the patsy is, you're the patsy.
This is the perfect RIA, in case you didn't know. Bringing you all the strategies to help your business grow. Are you happy? Are you satisfied? Are you hanging on the edge of your seat? Sit back and listen in while you feel the beat, yeah. Another myth bites the dust.
Well, welcome back to another amazing episode of the Perfect RIA podcast. I'm your co-founder, Micah, and with me, as usual, but not usually in the sauna, but that is presently where he is at, Matthew Jarvis. What's going on, bud?
Mike, I'm doing good. Here we are. We're in Nevada at my house. We're sitting in the sauna watching the sunset. So our relationship keeps getting a little bit weirder. Now we're doing podcasts in the sauna. But we just got done with our Invictus Mastermind, where we got to meet with a lot of great Invictus members. And if you hear the sound of steam, that literally we're in a sauna. But something that came up, not just with the Invictus Mastermind, Micah, but in general, is this idea like, hey, I'm not playing office, but I'm at capacity. And I really feel like these two things are at odds with each other.
You know, and this is one thing that we just hear from, I hear from advisors consistently when I'm talking about it. And there's several tales in this. Now, one of the things that I love about our masterminds, slightly biased, sure, is I really love our financial transparency that we have, or financial undressing is what I like to call it. And one of the reasons that we are such an advocate for financial undressing in front of other advisors is they get to spot out while you're drinking the Kool-Aid and when you're not. Now, this is an area that we need to be really cognizant of. And Jarvis, maybe if I can ask you to tell a story about Dave Ramsey and President Bush. But this is one of the things that comes out is when we're at these masterminds, when you're talking to other advisors, you need to make sure that you're being compassionate with them, but not in the traditional sense of compassion of just saying anything that appeases them, which I think is modern culture is going to, but of actually calling them out in their truth. And you actually have a relative story about that, kind of about former President George W. Bush when he was at the Dave Ramsey's event, right?
Yeah. So I got the opportunity to go to Dave Ramsey's Leadership Summit, which I do actually highly recommend. It was a really good program. I actually ended up getting to spend several hours with Dave Ramsey's leadership team smoking cigars together. That's a different story. But somebody asked Dave, they said, hey, Dave, and again, Dave has 1,000 employees. So say what you will about his financial advisor or not. He has 1,000 employees. He's impacting millions of lives. They said, Dave, what if you have an employee, or in this case, a mastermind peer, who something's going wrong? How do you address that? And he told this story that he had President Bush Jr., he had him speak at an event. And as President Bush, as part of the VIP package, you could have your picture taken with President Bush. And the first person to step up to have their picture taken with President Bush had his hat on backwards. And President Bush leaned over to him and he said, son, at some point in the future, you're going to look at the picture of you with the President of the United States of America, and you're going to wish that you didn't have your hat on backwards. And the guy said, you know what, you're right. Actually, I'll straighten my hair. I'll take my hat off. But he was just very direct. He didn't dance around. He just said, son, you're not going to want this down the road. Same goes when we're talking to other advisors. There's this temptation to say, an advisor says, hey, I'm so busy. I'm at capacity. I'm doing all this marketing. You're not going to tap the brakes here. I'm looking at your numbers, and the numbers don't add up, right? You're telling me you're doing all this marketing, but you can't show me any meetings that you've had on the calendar.
Now, this whole concept that we're at capacity, right? I can definitely empathize with it, whatever that right one is because, you know, you can go to work, you can be spending all day, you feel like you don't have time to do the things that you need to do to grow your practice, whether it's marketing, whether it's develop more value adds, anything of that nature. And so we have this tendency to say, well, that's because I'm at capacity. And really, I push back on that because I've met so many advisors across the nation that deal with hundreds of households, add massive value, generating great revenue, and they don't even talk about capacity. In fact, I have yet to meet a growth-minded advisor that really says they're at capacity. Now, they may say, hey, in order to grow, I need to make these changes. Okay, but they're not limiting themselves saying, well, I'm at capacity. I can't take on any more clients. I can't do anything else, etc. And so when I hear that, that's almost like it's hell for me, Jarvis, that this person is coming out and saying, I'm playing office, yet I don't want to admit it.
Yeah, it's very much a victim mindset. And to your point, as I think of advisors that we mastermind with, advisors that have a real growth mindset, again, they never say things like, hey, I'm at capacity. They might certainly say, hey, I choose to stop here. They might say, hey, listen, before I can take on more clients, I'm going to need to bring on another team member. Now, again, these are advisors that are personally serving, let's call it 150 clients, right? So sometimes we see advisors, they say, I'm at capacity, I'm going to bring on a junior advisor. We say, how many clients do you have? They say 30. Okay, well, these are 30 ultra high net worth.
30 a week that you're seeing? Is that the issue or what?
Yeah, and there's certainly, if you're dealing with some ultra high net worth family officing, that may be the case. But if you're doing it with a mass affluent, which we're going to call like $500,000 to $5 million in assets, any advisor can serve 100 to 150 of those with incredible levels of service. In fact, if you feel that you have if you're telling yourself, you know what, I can only serve 40 clients because my service is so much higher than you, then it's time for us to have a service value smackdown like we did with the one-page financial plan back down. Like if you think you're providing more value to your clients than Micah is, please give the show a call and we would be glad to have that. Now, money where your mouth is, we're going to ask for some money up on the line to make sure this is real.
Right.
But again, don't use that as an excuse.
Yeah, I love how I just got volunteered for a fight. But yeah, no, delighted to. Again, right? But delighted to, because this is something we have to call each other out on and be like, hey, is this really the best mindset? Is this really the best use that you're talking about, that you're being limited in playing office? Now, before you say, hey, I'm not playing office, I'm going to say every single advisor that I've ever met through the history of time plays office, including this guy right here. We are all guilty of it. The real question is saying, okay, what do I do when I notice I'm playing office? Or what are the ways that I can notice I'm playing office? One of the ways that I like to look at it is saying, look, here's the top 3 things that I need to be doing, which is the highest and best use of my time. And if I am not doing one of those 3 things, I need to stop and say, hey, do I need to delete or delegate this task? Why am I doing these things? Now, there's always going to be this one thing here or there that you're going to need to get involved in, etc., as a bit of a one-off. And so those things are going to come up. So don't let that be your holdup right here. This is really the mainstay stuff. But on a day-to-day basis, if you think you're at capacity, but you're not in surge seeing clients, what are you doing?
Yeah, and let's use a very, very specific example of playing office. Because again, like you said, I meet advisors that say, I never play office anymore. Well, I personally play office, so I'm sure everyone else does. So let's run through this. As advisors listening, a client calls your office, speaks with your assistant and says, hey, I need $15,000 for, doesn't really matter what, needs $15,000. What is that process that goes from there? If the process involves, hey, Mr. Advisor, from what account should we take that from? How much should we withhold in taxes and should we trade? That is playing office. That is playing office. So I think, Micah, sometimes there's this misnomer that playing office means literally playing solitaire. But playing office also means you're touching things that you don't need to touch, or you're touching them again and again. For example, in your CRM, it should say the tax withholding for every client. It should say what account, if they need distribution, it's going to come from, so that, 90 out of 100 of those requests never need to cross your desk.
Yeah, we went through this outline with our Invictus members too, just about cashiering. What is the way that we handle it? Now, am I saying this is the best way to handle it? Man, I would love to see a better way to handle it. So I'm not saying it's the best. I am saying it's what we do. And for the goal of servicing our clients, it works fan-friggin-tastic. Jervis, so I think a real easy example of this, and I'm going to oversimplify this, right? But I always want to, I'm going to go through our cashiering process real quick. Now, I always want to empower my team to answer the client's question, but not give advice.
Yes.
And there's a very fine line that we have to dance between there. And so what is not giving advice is relaying something I've said. So if I was very simply, if a client calls in and says, hey, how much should I withhold on an IRA distribution? We have it noted in the CRM that every single client, unless there's an exception put in place, every single client should hold at least at their marginal tax rate, not their effective tax rate. That just came up. Because any new dollar I pull out of a distribution is taxed at the marginal rate, not their effective rate. So that's one rule that we have. So if a client calls in and says, hey, I'm thinking about taking X amount of money out of my account, how much taxes should I have withheld? My team is going to say, hey, Micah recommends you withhold at 22%, which would be X dollars, right? And it's very true, because I've recommended that across the board. And the way we've done that is we've put in the marginal tax rates of all of our clients inside of our CRM. So another way, if I kind of back this up just a little bit, going a little cashiering route, is if a client calls in, of course, step 1 is making sure we're training the team on how to have those calls. Really, really important. Step 2, when a client wants money, is we're going to find out, okay, how much do they want? We're always talking net numbers to clients, and we're going to figure out how to gross. Now, before the team can exercise that distribution, the next thing they're going to go do is run their buckets report and make sure their distributions are not over 5%. If their distributions are less than 5%, then the team can go ahead and move forward on that distribution, because we've already set aside the money for distributions to be taken out. If it's over 5%, now the advisor needs to get involved. So a client calls in, wants some money, they run it, it's under that 5%. They've asked how much we want. We want $15,000. Great. There's $15,000 net, which will be deposited in your account by Wednesday of next week, or whatever the date is. Client says, that's fantastic. Just so you know, we're going to withhold a little bit more money and send it off so you don't owe money at the end of the year to the IRS. Is that okay with you? The client says, that's fantastic. The team goes through, puts the process in. We have the cash available because we have that 5% already sitting in cash because we are ready for distributions for the client. The team can exercise 100% of that because I've already given pre-instructions on how to handle this, and it doesn't have to come to me. There's several areas in there that if it goes outside of a bounds, the team's like, well, now I'm getting in this advice territory. Client's going to take out more than 5%. I got to put the brakes on. Clients take out $150,000. Whoop, got to put those brakes on. I can't do this without bringing the advisor into the loop. But now we've handled 99% of distribution and cashiering questions. I've empowered the team to be able to take care of.
Yeah, and this, again, is where advisors get stuck because in so many offices, Micah, it's let me ask the advisor. The advisor then pulls up the client record, reads through the last 2 memos, pulls up the tax return, looks at it, makes some guesses. And then, Micah, what we do is we tell ourselves, you know what, this is personalized advice. No, you doing things the slowest, most manual way is not providing personal advice. It's plain office, right? So in your scenario, Micah, what that requires then is that you, on whatever frequency, once a year, once a quarter, heck, you could do it once a month, look down all of your client households, designate in the CRM, what's the tax withholding, what is the go-to account, and what's sort of the threshold at which we can pull money out, or we need to stop and look at that. That could be done for an entire, you can do that for 200 clients in under an hour. But let's say it takes you 6 hours to do that. I can't imagine how it would, but compare that to every time a client calls in, you're interrupted in your process, which costs you a couple hours of productivity, and then it takes you 20 or 30 minutes to answer that question. And so again, plain office is more often than not this illusion of providing customized advice when really you're just doing things the hardest way they could possibly be done.
The Perfect RA challenges financial advisor to answer the question, what would you do if you weren't afraid? Surround yourself with financial advisors who share your common values and goals towards success. The advisor is you. The time is now. Don't be like most people who fail to take action and achieve their dreams. Go online today at theperfectraa.com and decide what type of financial advisor you plan to be.
Another thing is choosing not to automate. You're choosing not to use Calendly for appointments. You're choosing not to create a process for your team so they can go ahead and answer these questions for you. All of this is playing office. Trading is another way of playing office. If you're not systematizing things and using models, so often we get in this headspace that says, well, I'm going to run a custom model for my client because that's how I'm going to truly add value. And I can speak at that because I did it for years, because that's how you add value. And in fact, it was less value to those clients. I was like, holy crap, I'm spending so much time doing this. I'm not adding the value I need. When I create systematized models for clients that are geared towards retirement, it works so much better.
This speaks also to Roth conversions, right? So advisors will go one client at a time, one meeting at a time, taking 20 or 30 minutes on each one, or in a system, which is plain office, or in a systematized office, you have your assistant or your paraplanner, or you hire a paraplanner that pulls the data you need off the tax return for every single household, puts it all into one spreadsheet. Then you've got just a couple little formulas showing you how much room is left in the marginal tax rate, et cetera. And then you can look down that list. You can look down all 150 clients at one time and get within 90%, right, Micah? There's always a few that you'll say, I need to go back and look at Dave because I think he had a retirement event. I think Sally's actually widowed this year. But that's the exception, not the rule. If you're treating each thing like it's this one-off customized thing, you are not serving the client. You're playing office.
Yeah, so you really got to look into those very intentionally and say, where are those activities taking place? Where am I playing office? Again, highest and best use of my time. Strategic work, being outside of the office and strategizing for where does the team need to be in the next 1, 3, 5, 10 years. That's highest and best use of my time. Meeting with clients in a surge prepared meeting is highest and best use of my time. If it's a return phone call, it needs to be a prepped return phone call. That means my team has a checklist of things they're going to run through in advance, including number one, scheduling the client to meet at a particular time. So we're not playing telephone tag, running through several things to make sure I am prepped for that meeting and we are ready to have it with the most up-to-date information. Every advisor knows there's no such thing as a simple question, right? When a client says they have a simple question, that means I got 30 minutes on the phone, right? It's not those simple of things. And we got to be prepared for those. Me scrambling at the last minute because Bob's on the phone to try to get ready to answer Bob's question is not highest and best use of any of our times. So anything that's outside of that, or prospecting, that's my third one, right? If I'm directly prospecting, not pretending to prospect. What's pretending to prospect? I'm going to spend an hour and a half in my recording studio setting up my lights because I don't look exactly the right way perfect. Nope, that's literally playing Office. Discovering what webinar platform is the best one to use. Nope, that is playing Office. You got 3 to choose from. Hired a consultant to give you a recommendation and move on. Talk to someone who does webinars, take whatever they're doing and move on. Go and do it. After you've done it for a while, if you want to tweak something, that's fine. We can talk about how that could be productive. But we spend so much time researching all these things versus actually taking action.
Yeah, and to put some harder lines on this thing, if you have less than 100 clients, and we'll put an asset number that's less than $100 million. Now, again, these are rules of thumb. It should be you and one full-time assistant, and that's it. That's it. If you have 80 clients, unless, again, you're dealing with some ultra high net worth thing, you do not need 5 people. You do not need a junior advisor. If you're doing less than $1 million a year in revenue, odds are you're playing off. It's almost like a give. If I meet an advisor who's in super growth mode, several names come to mind. They're busy all the time. They're never playing Office. When I see advisors that are kind of stuck in this $500,000 to $1 million of gross, and they've been there for a couple of years, Micah, that's a dead giveaway that they're playing Office.
It's a super dead giveaway they're giving Office. Now, in addition to that, one of the things you have to look at is you have to say, okay, since we're playing Office in this particular thing, what is it that I'm avoiding doing, right? And it's that thing that you think doesn't matter. It's a thing that, oh, I'm going to do this because this is the best way to do it, etc. And that's normally the thing that's playing Office. Easy example on that one is saying, oh, well, I have $20 million of assets that's, is just legacy assets and their clients that don't really call me. And I'll just take their phone call on my cell phone whenever they call because it's really not that big of a deal. No, it really is a big deal. Systematizing things and working with your clients in a value-driven manner. Everything counts. Everything counts. Everything helps you, counts for you. Everything counts against you, but every single thing counts. Yeah,
another example of this, and I'm going to lump playing Office under drinking your own Kool-Aid. We see this all the time where advisors lie to themselves about the numbers. And they'll say, hey, I've got $60 million in assets at 1%. But their gross revenue is $400,000. Well, hang on a second. $60 million at 1% is $600,000. Maybe it's up or down a tiny bit depending on the market. That's not what I'm talking about. If you're $60 million at 1%, then that's $600,000, right? And that's a commonplace, Michael. We see that so many times. Or they say, hey, I'm running at a 50% margin. Cool. So I'm looking at your gross billing. It says $600,000. I'm looking at your tax return. It says $200,000. That is not a 50% margin, right? That's like a 35% margin. And we also see it a lot more extreme. Advisor will say, I'm running at a 90% margin. Okay, so you've got $100 million that's being billed at $1.50 by whomever. So that's $1.5 million. And again, you've got $300,000 coming to the bottom line. That's not a 90% margin. That's some dismal lower number.
Yeah. And another way so again, when you're thinking about this is if you say you're at capacity, really have a hard conversation with yourself and saying, am I being lazy or am I building for strategic growth? Now, we have one advisor that we're working with on our team and inside of Invictus, and he has phenomenal growth, and he's thinking about bringing on a junior advisor, and he is not to a capacity level, but his potential growth rate is saying, hey, this is about a year and a half out, and you're really going to want to think about some things a little bit differently. So he's starting to plant the seed that says, hey, about this time, I need to be thinking about a junior advisor or a protege coming into play, but he's not letting his foot off the gas. He's still growing. He's still pushing it that's going out there, and that's really, really important. Where this is all about solving for intentionality, and I don't want to take away from that. Now, if your intention is to say, hey, I'm going to build up a book of $500,000 in revenue, and I'm going to have 50% profitability, and I'm going to live on $250 million, and I'm going to be fat, dumb, and happy, and this is what I'm going to do, well, then fantastic. Own it and love it. That's fantastic. What I push back with is the lying to ourselves. And I don't want to say dishonesty, because I really don't think it's an aspect of dishonest. We have just not been clear in talking to ourselves, our own self-talk on what this means. And I think that's truly harming, because you're going to lie at 1%, then it's going to go to 2%. Then it's going to go to 10%. Then it's going to go to 20%, and you're still lying to yourself.
Yeah, the best way to cure this, and I'm really insistent on this, we only talk numbers if we have the numbers in front of us. In fact, we just did our Jarvis Financial Team retreat right before we recorded this, and the team was kind of saying like, how was this year for prospecting? There was things like, it was a good year, it was an okay year, it was a whatever year. And I said, wait, stop right now. Let's pull up the spreadsheet. Oh, okay, here it was. It was X millions of dollars. Okay, now we can talk about how that compared to our goals. But again, for advisors, if you're talking about your profitability, your gross, your net, your household count, your fee schedule, those discussions should only be had when you're looking at the real numbers, because we all fish story ourselves. We all say, boy, that fish, how big was it? 5 pounds, 10 pounds, 15 pounds, 30 pounds? It was 200 pounds. I'm pretty sure. And then we go back and look at the picture of the scale and it was, 7 pounds, 2 ounces.
It's hilarious. Especially since I'm from Alaska telling fishing stories. All right, moving on from that one. Another one that came up in our office, which is we had our team meeting, which is great. Our phones turned on at 9 o'clock Alaska time. And there was a thing that says, hey, 9 o'clock Alaska time is too late. We have a lot of clients in the lower 48. We need to turn it on sooner. Well, how soon? I don't know, but it needs to come on earlier. Okay, why? Well, a lot of clients want to call in before this and they can't. Okay, great. Are they calling in? Yes, clients are calling in before 9 o'clock. Fantastic. Go ahead and pull the logs. Let me know how much it is, how many clients it is. Again, we have about 500 and change households for the firm. It was two in the last 6 months. We're calling in. That was 2 calls, by the way, I believe, not just 2 people. Maybe it was just 2 people. So I could be off on that one, but it was 2. And I was like, sorry, I'm not changing the entire office routine for over 500 households that we manage for 2 clients calling in before 9 o'clock. And so this is an area that sometimes we can hear pushback from a client, and I got to pull back and see the stats on it. I got to pull back and see the data on it, especially with a client. I have some clients, let's talk about it from a spending perspective. I got one client, great guy. He's like, Micah, we are overspending. There's no way we can do this. He's got about $2.5 million. Again, we use a 5% distribution rate, and he's spending $3,000 a month. Quick math, they're doing just fine. Right. And he's like, because he has a pension, he has Social Security, he has all this. I mean, their income is like 12 grand a month. He's only pulling out 3. And so he's like, no, we can't pull out $12,000 a month. We're completely overspending. We got to stop this. Well, he's not pulling out 12 grand a month. He's pulling out $3,000 a month. He has $9,000 a month coming in from pension, Social Securities, et cetera, income that's there. And so we got to have this client conversation with him, just saying, hey, there's some things we need to think about setting these expectations and what are the real numbers of overspending, and saying, you know what, you could actually pull out closer to $10,000 a month, not just 3, and you're going to be just fine. So we got to talk in real numbers whenever we have a scenario, not theory.
Yeah. So really you need to treat your practice just like you would plan with a client, right? If a client comes in and says, hey, I've got about $1 million in my retirement accounts, you'd say, hey, can I please see those statements, right? You want to see what the real numbers are. So with your practice, you need to have real numbers. We've talked, Micah, countless times, but not enough, about doing that quick fact check on yourself on how many hours you're spending really working, right? Which is take the number of clients you have, times it by, let's call it 4 hours, 2 surge meetings, 2 prep hours, call it 5 hours if you want. So if you have 100 clients, you're spending 5 hours on each one, that's 500 hours. Where are the other 1,500 hours going? Now, you might be telling me, wait a second, Jarvis, I spend 15 hours on each client, in which case we need to look at your process because you're spending most of your time spinning your wheels.
I was listening, and then all of a sudden the cord from the headset burned my shoulder, so I quit listening halfway through that. But you were probably right. I'm going to say another thing that I'm going to start really drilling on advisors, because this is a Micah pet peeve that's really going to come out this next year, is, are you following your own advice? And this year, I'm going to start calling people out a lot more clear, because again, I really think this is a compassionate thing to do. I'm not trying to do it to be an ass. You're welcome to call me on it if you think I'm doing it in that perspective. But let me give you a quick example. So, and you could just ask yourself this: how much money did you save for yourself in 2022 for retirement? Right? Not for a spending account, for retirement. Now, I asked this question recently to a whole group of advisors, and they said, max it on a 401k. They said it very proudly. One person was over 50. I'm even doing the catch up. I was like, oh my gosh, that's amazing. So let me get this straight. You spend $350,000 a year right now, and you are saving a 401k plan plus a catch up. So you're saving $27,000 a year. Let's say you're giving yourself let's say it's 30 grand a year, right? No, you're not even close to replacing your income. You have no pension, right? You may get Social Security, sure, give that in there, but you're spending 30 grand a month. You saving 30 grand a year ain't going to make up the difference. And so are we following our advice? Your estate planning documents. I'm going to start calling advisors out and say, perfect, show it to me. Let me see that power of attorney. Let me see that trust. Let me see that healthcare directive, right? Because we're pushing this on clients from a great perspective, as we should. If I have a client that's spending $500,000 a year and all they're doing is maxing out one 401k plan, we got a problem, folks. That's not enough money to retire. We don't need Money Guide Pro to tell us that. So these are things that really got to start pushing. Quit drinking your own Kool-Aid. If you're drinking the Kool-Aid that says, oh, my income's always going to go up. Oh, I'm going to work until I die. Oh, I don't need to save. Then how dare you sit in front of a client and tell them they need to save for retirement?
Yeah, same goes for Roth conversions. Same goes for disability insurance, life insurance, all of these things. And Mike, I think as we kind of ramp up this episode, it really comes back to, are you in integrity with yourself, right? And so as you pointed out, this isn't about us intentionally lying to ourselves, right? It's not about, yes, there are a few advisors out there that are lying to everybody. Let's set those people aside. Most of us are just unintentionally deceiving ourselves because we don't want to come to terms that we're out of integrity, right? We're saying, hey, I'll get disability insurance. I don't really need it in my situation. I'll do a Roth conversion eventually. I'm at capacity capacity. What's really going on is I don't want to be a hardworking advisor, so I'm going to say I'm at capacity. So these are all things. And again, Micah, you and I, we still play offense. We have to constantly be vigilant. Am I playing offense? Where am I lying to myself about the numbers? Am I in fact prospecting, or am I just dreaming about prospecting? And I envision that the same in my mind.
All right, so let's try and transition this to action items, because this podcast is all about action, taking action items. Of course, come on. Listen to 2 guys in a sauna right now. That's 5 stars. Amen. All right, so beyond that, giving us 5 stars on your platform and sharing this, because keep in mind, TPR's mission is to transform the financial planning industry, and we cannot do that without your help. So I mean, this is in all sincerity. We want your feedback. We want you to share this with other advisors. Become a member, don't become a member, right? That's a different discussion, but we're going to transform the industry. We've already started in surge meetings and value adds and all these great things you're seeing out there, and we're not done yet. All right, so your action item, what you want to do. What I want you to do is take an honest look at yourself. And here's how I'm going to tell you to do it. Right now, unless you're driving, right now, get a piece of paper, a sticky, open up your iPhone, whatever, and write down several numbers for me. Number 1, how many households do you have? Number 2, what's your total AUM? Number 3, what's your billing schedule? Number 4, what was your revenue? And don't you dare say you need to look it up. Go write those numbers down right now. Then I want you to draw a line, vertical line down between all those numbers. Then I want you to go to your computer, and now I want you to look them up. I want you to actually pull your households. I want you to actually pull your AUM, and I want you to pull your revenue. And from your revenue to your AUM, you tell me what your fee schedule is and see if those 2 numbers match up. And they should. If they're not, you've been lying to yourself. And welcome to the club. You are not alone in this thing. And we got to keep ourselves honest. We got to be looking at that. Look at your own numbers.
Yep. Action item number 2, and Micah, this has been transformative in yours and I's respective lives. It's what led to the creation of the Perfect RA, of Retirement Tax Services, of Value First Advisors, of my book, Delivering Massive Value. All of these things were the direct result of being around a group of advisors who will hold you accountable and who will call you out on your own BS, right? I can think of all these masterminds we've done with Invictus, with our friends, and with each other. And we said, all right, great. Or what's really going on here? What are you really trying to do? And what's it really going to take to do it? And of course, we attach extreme accountability to go along with that. So you have to have a group. If you don't know a group, Invictus is a great one. There are a lot of fluff groups. There are a lot of groups that will pat you on the back. They will say that you're a special and unique snowflake. Whatever it is you think you need, that will not transform your practice. And more importantly, will not transform the lives of your clients.
Well, Jarvis, I really said when you started listing that all these things that were created and saying, well, what was the thing that created them? I was expecting you to say meeting me, because I think after me, all these things were created. But you know, whatever. All right,
also true.
Again, what I lie to myself on. All right. So, all right. 3rd action item that you need to have: never say that you're at capacity ever again. Never say it. Just stop. Right? Hey, the next level of my growth is, the next transition of my firm is, the next way I'm going to achieve this level of success is, my ideal life practice is. Say it that way. Enough of this at capacity bull crap that I can point to 100 advisors that are running circles around you, and me, by the way, right, that are not at capacity and don't have that mindset. Stop lying to yourself, folks.
At best, you're going to say, I choose to be at this level. I choose to no longer grow my practice. I choose to let my practice stagnate. We'll do a different episode on that. But never say, it's victim language, right? Never say I'm at capacity. If only I had a better team. If only the markets were up. If only if my prospecting channel worked. All these if onlys, all victim mindset. All right. Last and final action item. You know it. You love it. Go ahead and give this podcast 5 stars on whatever podcast platform you listen to. As Micah mentioned, we are transforming the industry. We're also doing dramatically more speaking engagements this year so that we can get that word out. And so if you have a group of advisors getting together, of 50 or more advisors, reach out to Lifestyle of the Perfect RA, and let's see if we can help transform the lives of that group as well.
Awesome, Jarvis. As always, it's awesome chatting with you, sir. And guys, until next time, happy planning.
Happy planning.
Hold on before we go. Something that you need to know. This isn't tax, legal, or investment advice. That isn't our intent. Information designed to change lives. Financial planning can make you thrive. Start today, don't think twice. Be a better husband,